The room is full. Voices overlap like waves hitting a crowded shore. Someone laughs loudly near the window. Another person tells a story, exaggerating every detail for effect. From the outside, it looks like connection. But inside your mind, something feels different. You are there, yet a strange part of you is watching everything from a distance. Your eyes move slowly across the room. You notice the man who laughs just a second too late, the woman who smiles politely but never relaxes her shoulders. You begin to notice patterns. Who dominates the conversation? Who avoids eye contact? Who laughs to hide discomfort? Suddenly, the entire room begins to feel like a stage. People are talking, but your mind is studying, observing, analyzing, and a strange thought appears. Maybe the conversation isn't real. Maybe it's performance. Sometimes the greatest loneliness isn't being alone. It's noticing things no one else seems to notice. Carl Jung believed that when awareness begins to grow, the world begins to shape-shift. The deeper the mind sees, the harder it becomes to pretend that everything is simple. And in that moment, surrounded by people, you feel it. Distance. Not physical distance, psychological distance. Society has a quiet preference. It prefers minds that follow, not foolish minds, just compliant ones. People who accept rules without asking questions. People who follow expectations without examining them. People who move through life like passengers on a train. Comfortable, predictable, safe. But deep thinkers do something dangerous. They ask the forbidden question, why? Why do people behave this way? Why do certain conversations feel rehearsed? Why do people laugh when they feel uncomfortable? Why does so much of social life feel strangely artificial? Ironically, the moment you start asking these questions, something interesting happens. People become uneasy around you. Not because you are rude, but because awareness spreads. And nothing makes a crowd more uncomfortable than someone who sees through the script. Because once someone begins asking why, others begin wondering if they should ask the same question. According to Carl Jung, human beings rarely show their real face to the world. Instead, they wear something else, a mask. Jung called this mask the persona. The persona is the version of ourselves designed for society. The polite version, the confident version, the acceptable version. Imagine entering a workplace. The same person who laughed loudly with friends suddenly becomes formal and careful. The personality changes instantly, not because the person is fake, but because the mask has changed. Deep thinkers eventually begin noticing this everywhere. Conversations start to feel like theater. People speak in scripts. They laugh at expected moments. They nod when agreement is socially required. And once you see the mask, you cannot unsee it. The moment you realize many people aren't being themselves is the moment conversations begin to feel like theater. Words stay the same, but meaning
changes completely.
Most people live life from the inside. They experience events without questioning the structure behind them. But deep thinkers develop a different perspective. They become observers. Imagine watching a chess match. Players focus only on their next move, but an observer sees the entire board. Patterns appear. Strategies reveal themselves. Human behavior begins to look similar. Conversations become predictable patterns. Reactions begin to repeat. And suddenly, the world becomes understandable in a new way. But clarity comes with a cost. Most people live inside the conversation. The deep thinker watches the conversation and themselves inside it. This creates a strange dual existence. You are present, but also watching, participating, but also analyzing. And over time, this perspective changes how you experience everything.
There is a myth that intelligence automatically creates happiness. Reality suggests something very different. Awareness can be heavy. Imagine hearing every hidden tone in a conversation. Imagine noticing every insecurity in a room. Imagine sensing the emotional tension everyone pretends not to see. This is the weight of awareness. Because once the mind begins seeing patterns, it cannot stop. You begin noticing the fears people hide, the doubts behind confidence, the loneliness behind humor. And suddenly, social environments feel exhausting, not because you dislike people, but because your mind is processing layers others never notice. The more you understand human behavior, the harder it becomes to pretend everything makes sense.
Carl Jung believed that every human being carries something hidden, a part of the psyche that lives in darkness. He called it the shadow. The shadow contains everything we refuse to see in ourselves: fear, envy, anger, insecurity. Society teaches us to hide these emotions, to bury them, to pretend they do not exist. But the mind remembers what it hides. Deep thinkers often encounter this shadow earlier than others, and the discovery can be unsettling. Because the moment you look honestly into your own mind, simplicity disappears. But something else appears: self-knowledge.
Crowds create a strange psychological comfort. Inside a group, people feel protected. Ideas spread quickly. Opinions become contagious. And suddenly, individuals stop thinking independently. Jung believed the collective mind can be powerful, but it can also be dangerous, because when the crowd decides what is true, few people dare to question it. Deep thinkers often feel uncomfortable inside large groups, not because they dislike people, but because they notice something others ignore: how quickly individuality disappears, how easily people adopt the beliefs around them, and how rarely anyone stops to ask whether those beliefs make sense.
Carl Jung believed the ultimate goal of psychological development is individuation. Individuation means becoming who you truly are, not the version society expects, not the version others project onto you, but the authentic self beneath the masks. This process requires courage, because it often means walking a path few others understand. You must question inherited beliefs. You must confront uncomfortable truths. You must listen to your own inner voice. And sometimes that voice leads away from the crowd. But Jung believed this journey is essential because without individuation, the individual remains trapped inside borrowed identities.
At first, solitude can feel like rejection.
It can feel like failure, like you somehow failed to belong. But something interesting happens over time. Solitude changes. It becomes silence instead of pain, stillness instead of emptiness, a place where the mind can breathe. Many deep thinkers discover their greatest insights in quiet moments, when noise disappears, when expectations fade, when the mind is free to wander. In that silence, clarity begins to form, questions slowly turn into understanding, and solitude becomes strength.
Feeling different can feel like a burden, but Jung believed it might also be a gift, because those who question deeply often see what others ignore. They see patterns, they see contradictions, they see the fragile complexity of human nature, and that awareness leads to something rare: wisdom. Not loud wisdom, quiet wisdom, the kind that understands people without judging them, the kind that sees the world clearly without becoming cynical. Maybe the problem isn't that you don't fit into the world. Maybe you simply started seeing it too clearly. The path toward the self is rarely crowded, but it leads somewhere extraordinary: wholeness. And sometimes the journey toward wholeness begins with the courage to walk alone.